Islam is not only a religion, but it is also a political ideology, a political movement. That ambition to force the society to uphold their belief system is embedded in the Islamic scripture. When you have an ideology that legitimizes brutality and legitimizes crime, then you will attract criminals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Western Spirit Podcast. Today, we have with us someone very special, Danny Burmawi, and I hope I'm saying his name right. So soon Danny will correct me if not. Danny is an author, a political commentator, and founder of the Ideological Defense Institute. Danny was born in Jordan, converted from Islam to Christianity as a young man, and we'll talk to him a little bit about that. He left his homeland and shaped the course of his life. At the age of 19, he moved to Lebanon, where he spent 14 years immersed in the region's political and religious complexities, which is why we're talking to him. And Danny wrote a new book just now that is called Islam, Israel, and the West. And so, Danny, it is a true pleasure to speak with you.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Danny, in your book, Islam, Israel, and the West, like I just said, you explain something that I found very interesting just off the top. Your basic contention, the first thing that I popped out at me was that you explained why Islam is not just a religion, but it's also, you called it a political ideological system with global ambitions. And you put that in the context of what we in Israel are seeing over the past 2 years plus now, since October 7th, but even before, obviously. So maybe just talk about that. What is the difference between Islam, let's say, and Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism? What makes it so different politically?
Sure. Let's take any religion. What is that religion consist of? You have a set of beliefs and the desire that people follow or would follow that set of belief. That is any religion. You have Christianity. Christianity has a certain worldview and has the desire to see everyone follows that worldview. Judaism is a little bit different. It has a set of beliefs that apply only to Jews. However, any Jew would love to see the world follow the laws of Noah or to know the God of Israel, right? So you have that desire. Hinduism, even atheism, not even a religion. It's like, okay, we see that there's no God and we hope that everyone in the world would believe that. That is the extent. That is the end. It's like there's nothing beyond that. In Islam, you have a set of belief and you have the desire to see the world follow these beliefs, but there's something else. And that is what makes Islam different than the religions and similar to political movements. That is the ambition to gain political power in order to impose that set of belief on the society. So you look at conservatism, liberalism, for example, communism, Nazism, they had these elements, but that they did not stop at, oh, we wish that people would follow. They they were seeking the political power in order to impose it militarily on the society. Islam is not only a religion, but it is also a political ideology, a political movement, and that ambition to force the society to uphold their belief system is embedded in the Islamic scripture.
And Danny, can I just one thing that you wrote today? We're recording this on Wednesday. Something interesting, I think, on X, which you were explaining the dawah. So, and I think we should a little bit talk about that before we continue. Is there seems to be a sort of like tweezers, meaning on the one hand you'll have, if you don't do what I say in our society, then we will subjugate you. You will be the dhimmis, you will be the kafars. And on the other hand, we're always going to use the carrot and the stick. You'll have the carrot will come to you, to your community. If you be with us, we'll give you everything. We'll give you the food, we'll give you the charity work. So maybe talk about that, the insidious nature of the charity within the Islamist communities.
Sure. Let's just start with the Christian evangelism in order to give a context to the audience. Um, an evangelist who believes in Christ and who's a member of a church and who's on a mission to preach the gospel to everyone in the world, their desire is rooted in the fact that they want people to get saved so that they could know the real God, the true God, and go to heaven. So that's why they evangelize. They feel this call. They are called to do that, and according to the church, it is motivated by love, not by anything else. Because God loves the word, the church is called to love the word and to go out and preach the gospel. Now, in Islam, evangelism is da'wah. Da'wah is literally translates to calling. You call people to convert to Islam. But not like Christianity, da'wah is not motivated by love or because you don't want people to go to hell. Of course, you incentivize them with that. It's like you don't want to go to hell, you want to go to paradise. However, the real motivation is quantity. We want more people to join us. Because we have the ultimate goal of da'wah is to turn the whole world Islamic. It is the intellectual arm of jihad. That is how you do jihad, by converting people. But I'm not making a claim here. In the Quran, when Allah told Muslims or told the Prophet how to distribute zakah, zakah is the charity, um, there was a category who deserve to receive money or from the zakah, and those who are to be targeted in order to convert them, to soften their hearts. المؤلفة قلوبهم in Arabic. So if you really care about converting people because you care about their destiny, you wouldn't be incentivizing them with money, right? So it's about quantity. Beside that, converting to Islam is ridiculously easy. You just repeat the Shahada and you're in. That's it. And if you want to convert to Judaism, you will be discouraged for 10 years. Then you have to really follow the 613 commandments and live like a Jew and study for years. In Christianity, it's pretty easy to convert. However, what happens after the conversion really matters. It's like you have to become a member of the church, and in most cases, they won't baptize you before a couple of years of discipleship and studies, and the church would be like looking at you with suspicion, like all the time. It's like, is he converted or not? I experienced that myself, right? So, why is it so easy to convert to Islam? And again, it's because of quantity. So da'wah in the West today is targeting a lot of the fragile community.
In the
Um,
prisons and all these other places.
yeah, it's like it's in the presence for sure. And I'm unfortunately, I don't want to sound like I'm hateful or anything, but seriously, when you have an ideology that legitimize brutality and legitimize crime, then you will attract criminals. That's it. So that's what happens in Islam. It's instead of building a human, there are restrictions. So, for example, in in Christianity, Jesus said, "Don't look lustfully at a woman." in Islam, let's cover the woman. So instead of discipline and growth and investing in the human, Islam confuses restriction with that growth. Um, if we cover the woman, lust will be stopped. If we amputate the hand of the thief, then we stopped stealing. It's like, what about people can steal today with their minds? They don't have to use their hands anymore. So anyway, it's just a belief system that really has sanctified the traditions of the 7th century Arabia, and made it a religion. That's it.
Yeah. And another thing that I think I do want to get your thoughts on is the Jew hatred in the Arabic speaking world. You were brought up in Jordan and then Lebanon, and I assume you went to other areas in the Middle East and you know the area well. And especially Egypt is one example that I think is worth talking about. The amount of Jew hatred, just they most people in Egypt never saw a Jew, never met a Jew. In Jordan and all these other places, and there's a sort of inherent, just automatic hatred just of anything. The Jew is the devil. The Jew is the robber, the thief. The Jew is the plunderer of the land. The Jew is the reason why we're politically unsuccessful, why we don't have rights, and all this. Can you talk a little bit about when you were growing up, let's say in Jordan? What did they tell? What was, if I would tell you I was a Jew and I met you in Jordan when you were growing up 20, 30 years ago, what would you think of me?
I'll be trying to find your tail or horns.
Yes.
That's how we imagine Jews to be. They're the most evil. The word Yahudi or a Jew in Arabic literally means somebody who's really evil. So if somebody made a mistake or did something to you, you would call them a Jew. So I believe this is rooted in Muhammad's failure to convince the Jews to accept and recognize him. At the beginning of his da'wah, he tried to appeal to the Jews. He tried to legitimize his God, Allah, by connecting him to Judaism. And when the Jewish communities in the Arab Peninsula, they refused that because it's like Islam is foreign to Judaism. Islam came with no basic understanding of the fundamentals of the Jewish faith. So of course they mocked him. They said, no, thank you. We're not gonna follow you. So he just flipped. He transformed from being someone who is trying to convince the Jews to follow him to someone who is very aggressive toward them.
And we know
And
of all the wars that he did with them and the slaughtering and all that kind of stuff. With the chant Khaybar Khaybar is that, right? It's
yeah, yes, sure. Muhammad always, like almost all of his battles, there was always a manufacturing of a pretext or a cause in order to justify his wars. So he found one to massacre the tribe of Bani Qurayza, a Jewish tribe that was living in the Medina. Then he forced the Khaybar out of their homes and massacred many of them, took six slaves from them. And in the Quran, that's where the problem begins. When the Quran described the Jews as the enemies of Allah and the killers of the prophets, and that Muslims will have to fight the Jews until they defeat them completely, and Muhammad's prophecy that at the end of the times, Muslims will fight the Jews, and Jews will hide behind the rocks and trees, and rocks and trees will call out to Muslims, "Hey, Muslim, come and kill the Jew hiding behind me." So this is unfortunately was cultivated after the establishment of the state of Israel, and Israel The problem is, as you know, it's not about land, it's about the concept of nation state. Israel was the embodiment of that concept, which is antithetical to Islamic theology. And the moment Israel became a nation state, that destroyed or shattered the dream of the caliphate or reestablishing the caliphate after it fell in 1924. So that made things worse. Now you don't only hate the Jews for a theological reason, you also have a political reason to hate them for.
Yeah. And also one of the things that you've spoken about in the book, and also in a lot of the things you've written outside of the book, is the way you look at the Israeli Arab conflict. You a little bit mentioned to it here. And I've been here I grew up in America and came to Israel at the age of 14 in the army here and all that. I've always had a little bit of confusion. Why is the conflict here so important? Why do people look? We're a small place. No matter what you think of is actually happening here, it can't be bigger than the India-Pakistan war with two nuclear countries that no one spoke about pretty much in the West, and everyone was speaking about what was happening here in Gaza. There's no comparison in the way world events should be looked at. And yet, no, people are looking here and protesting about it here in the West and in the Arab states, and even in Japan and South Korea, and in China, and everyone's looking here. What is so important? Why is this place where I'm sitting here right now? Why does it cultivate so much attention?
Actually, there's an entire chapter in the book about the Arab-Israeli conflict, and they called it the Islamic war against Israel. Um, and But in the introduction I explained why, and you mentioned Pakistan, India, and it's like I mentioned that verbatim, like so um listen, I believe that there is something spiritual here. Israel has always been the center of history. And I always say this, that Israel is the mirror of humanity. The journey from the land of slavery through the wilderness to the land of milk and honey is exactly the journey of every single individual in the world, and the journey of nations as well. We are to leave the land of slavery. We are to go through the suffering and pain of the wilderness before we could reach the promised land. And I believe the Western civilization has left the land of slavery, went through the battles, went through the wilderness before they entered the promised land, and do a lot of battles before they settle in the land. And that's when, in the Bible, when Israel is at peace, after they settle in the land, they turn to idols, and they forget who they are, and they forsake their God. And then they God allowed them to go to the exile. And this is the time of the exile of the Western civilization, unless they listen to the prophets and repent and remember who they are, their foundations, the biblical foundations of the Western civilization. So this is the spiritual part. But another part is that it's like in the first half of the 20th century, the Bolsheviks, they helped the Muslims to invent Palestine. And the goal of the Bolsheviks was to, of course, to attack the Western powers, the capitalist, through this alliance with Islam, and which was centered around Palestine. And since then, this cause has been ridden by every group, it's like by the Arab nationalists, by the communists in the Arab world, Gamal Abdel Nasser, by the Muslim Brotherhood, by King Faisal, who was against Gamal Abdel Nasser, by the Iranian Revolution, All of them used the Palestinian cause as a mask for their agenda. The same thing, I believe, happened in the West in different circles. The Palestinian cause was turned into the test. If you are for justice, if you are defending the oppressed, and of course, this is like the result of different ideological schools in the West. We're talking about post-colonialism, we talk about postmodernism. So they came to this realization that Palestine is the center of, it's like it gives us legitimacy in our endeavors, in our battles against the power structure of the West, which Israel is an extension of these power structures. You know, they look at Israel, even though Israel is the only Jewish state in the world, but they actually see it as an extension to the Christian, white, Western imperialist powers. So they don't care about the Jewishness of Israel. What they care about is that, oh, Israel is an imperialistic project. It's a colonialist project, similar to the Western colonialism that we are against. So that's why. That's why it doesn't matter how many people die starving in southern Sudan or in Libya. They don't care about any of that because, as a matter of fact, they don't care about the people of the Palestine. Of Palestine, it's like I always say. It's like let's say this Hollywood imbecile who is, working against Israel or attacking Israel, would he be willing to welcome a Palestinian into his house? Absolutely not. They wouldn't even stop on the street to say hi. But but of course they're like just repeating these narratives because it serves them. And but we have different groups in the West, and since October 7, we have seen different categories, I would say.
But can I also
Uh,
ask you about
Go
that,
ahead.
Danny? Before you get, maybe I'll just pinpoint it. So
Yeah,
we've seen. I was in New York not too long ago visiting, and I walked past one of the protests. And what you see is an interesting mix of Islamic people, really devout Muslims
yeah,
who really hate Israel for the reasons we spoke about until now, and again, go to your Danny's book to just get more immersed into it. But for those religious and philosophical and political, which, as you say, in Islam goes together, those reasons. But then at the same time, you see the pink-haired people and the LGBTQ people and the Queers for Palestine people, and
yeah,
they're both together. And I was speaking with Ayan Hirsi Ali not too long ago, and she told me that, the Islamic people, they have plan what will happen if they tear down the Western system. The other people, the woke progressive types, they don't have any plan. They'll be eaten by the Islamic people. Do you
sure.
think? But can you explain why? Like, how does someone that is a devout Muslim and is someone, let's say, from the Muslim Brotherhood type of cloth, he's standing there in this protest with someone who sleeps with people of the same sex, who some of them are dressed up as the other sex than they were born with because they're trans and all this kind of stuff. And he's standing there protesting together with them. How
Yeah.
does he look at it? Why does he accept it?
So basically, we have two things here. In the West, we have intersectionality. All the oppressed people are similar. The underdog, the weak. Doesn't matter the context, the facts, the history. As long as you are beaten, as long as you're weak, you are oppressed. And we have to stand by you, and your cause is our cause. So, this is why the radical left and the useful idiots in the West, they are supporting Hamas and supporting the Islamic Jihad, and empowering the Islamic movements in the West. That's how they see it. On the Islamic side, I call it the flush theory. So they flush all the disagreements down the toilet. They don't discuss it. They just ignore it completely, because their cause is being served now. So if you're serving me, I'm not going to look at these things as long as you are empowering me. It's like, I'll give you an example. Who do you think Muslims historically preferred? A Muslim caliph who is morally corrupt, or a non-Muslim who is morally a great person? Who do you think? Of course, the Muslim, even if he is morally corrupt. We have many examples in history. Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan. We have, it's like, I could list 10 people to you, 10 caliphs to you, who were, it's like, they were not devout Muslims. They were morally corrupt. It's like, you can't imagine their lives, what they used to do. Some of them were homosexuals, actually, like Al-Ma'mun, for example. But in the perspective of Muslims, as long as you identify with Islam, we're fine with it. But it does. It's not about your behavior. It's not about your values. It's just you identify with Islam. So as long as you're serving Islam, there is no question. It's like, it doesn't really matter. As you are in the process of building the Islamic empire. Later, once Islam is rooted, that's going to be a different thing. For example, in Iran, the communists and the Islamists, the so-called Islamists, they came together to take down the Shah, but then the Ayatollah regime just executed the communists in the country, even though they helped them to take over. So this is really something that the West needs to pay attention to. It's like, they are, and by the way, this is something important to mention. Jihad always has to masquerade itself. It's like, they don't want to say, and I'm talking here about the majority of Muslims. They don't want to say we support jihad. It has to be masked with something else. So it's liberation, justice, resisting the occupation. As long as the left in the West is supporting that narrative, then why would we would be stupid to highlight some of these things. However, they couldn't have helped themselves. We have seen at some protest clashes between Muslims and LGBT crowds.
We also saw it in the flotilla with Greta Thunberg. They had to go in two different boats: the
Yeah,
Islamic people and the woke leftist LGBT activists. So
yeah.
they had to split boats because they couldn't take it anymore. Um, and that goes to another issue that we have, which is the West. A lot of people in the West seem to be of the thought that when immigration comes in from Islamic countries, especially from the Arabic speaking world, these are people that, I'm talking about Europe mostly now. These are people that are poor. They want to get jobs. They're running away from tyranny. We saw this with all the Syrian in Germany when they just let into Europe 1 million plus Syrians, and in some places are getting letting in Gazans, and they don't explain to us how someone from an Arab speaking country, an Islamic, let's say Muslim Brotherhood affiliated, because they're the most I wouldn't say extreme, but they're the smartest in the way they do things. They know what
Yeah.
they're doing, so to speak. How do they look at immigration, the way, and how do they use it to undermine the West from within?
Well, the majority of Muslims who migrate to the West, they are not plotting against the West. They don't have this conspiracy that we want to take over. They are just they're coming to the West seeking better opportunities. They want more prosperous life for them and their families. The problem is they are conditioned by Islam to always side with those who don't come to the West with that intention. We have the radicals, the so-called radicals, but I call them people who take Islam seriously. And here I mean the Islamic movements, Muslim Brotherhood, or other. It doesn't really matter. It's like it's only names. As long as you believe in the authentic Islam, then so these movements, they come to the West. They have funds from Islamic players, and they will try to create voting blocks, electing officials, trying to use that system against itself. And the majority of Muslims who came to the West seeking better life, they will side with them. It doesn't matter. It's like they are not intentionally doing that, but they have to, because the ummah, the nation, comes first. So even I always say this to Muslims: like, if you pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the flag of the United States of America, does that mean if America went to war against an Islamic state in the future, you will side with America? Of course not. I'm not accusing any Muslims. Like, this is a fact, and they know it. So that's the problem in the West. The immigrants are being brought or poured into the West in order to be used by the different movements who have in mind subjugating and taking down the West and replacing the system.
And how do I'm not talking about the average day-to-day person, but the people who are the leaders and the movements that you talked about, and the more the people who actually believe this stuff and are pushing it, so to speak, using these people, how do they think of these compassionate people in the West who are so pro immigration, and they want to bring everyone in, and we
Yeah.
can't demonize, and we have to go to protest with them in order to make them feel at home? And why are we even putting any restrictions on immigration? It's all xenophobia and Islamophobia and all this kind of stuff. How do these people, the Islamists, so to speak, even though it's not the exact right word, like you
Yeah.
said, but how do they look at the Western elite progressives?
Yeah. They see them as idiots, as plain as that. It's like there's nothing else to see there. It's like, first of all, we need to understand what's happening in the West. So we have the globalist who wants to, the globalists want to take down the borders, and they want to destroy the concept of nation state. They want the whole world to become one entity, right? But there are two groups under globalist. You have the ideologues, who believe in a humanly brotherhood, and we are in order to bring justice to the rest of the world, we need to take down the borders, and all of us, we share in the wealth and all of that. And you have another group who are not ideologues. They don't care about humanity or brotherhood or any of that. It's they are pragmatic. They're like, okay, this is better. It's like, instead of dealing with regulations in every different region, let's have one regulations. Let's have it's like more control, more power. So that's why these two groups are pushing for immigration policies that really harming the West in a way that I'm not sure if there's a turning point now. It's like I'm not sure if there is a way out of this. So this is now you have Islam as the perfect candidate to accomplish the goal of these two groups. Islam has the numbers, procreations like nonstop, right? I call it rabbit procreation. It's like they have like dozens kids. You as a Jew or a Christian or an atheist in the West, if you want to have one child, you sit with your wife and you plan and you have a budget and you have, it's like, it's crazy. It's not easy. But in a Muslim family, they don't care about any of that, because there's this belief that God wants us to procreate and to multiply. So Islam has the number. Number two, Islam has the narrative. The persecuted, oppressed, brown minority. Even though Muslims are like 2 billion people, but they are seen by these radical groups as minority. and they are non-Christian, they're non-white, so they're the perfect candidate to be used in order to accomplish this goal. And you have I call it endless reservoir of fury and grievances within Islam. So all of these factors together, they make Islam perfect to be used by the globalists. And Islam, look at the globalists and wow, this is the perfect. This is like perfect. We want to take down the nation state. The nation state is antithetical to Islam, so yeah, let's do it together. Once we get to the end line, we will have an agreement. We'll have a deal. Don't worry about it. But of course, we know the deal. We know what's going to happen. It's like just look at the Labour Party in the UK. They care about the Muslim votes, so they are accommodating them, empowering them. Now we see the increase in the numbers of Muslim officials in the parliament and everywhere. So with the process of time, that number is going to grow more and more. And once they have the numbers, the Labour Party is going to be out. They think, oh, we will have like some kind of alliance. No, you will be just out. That's it.
Yeah, and I just want maybe before we continue about the West, I was wondering as you were speaking about how you see the Gulf states and maybe even Saudi Arabia with MBS in terms of the way they are going about doing Islam. Meaning, it seems to me that if I go here about a half hour away to Ramallah or to Jenin or to Nablus, which are pretty close to where I am now, the type of Islam that you would see here, at least the way it's being shown in the West, is very different than what you would see in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or even in some places of Saudi Arabia that MBS seems to be trying to change. Do you think it's a real change? It's honest. They really are changing, or is it again part of the dawah, as you said, the sort of taqiyya or whatever it's called, where they're playing a game in order to make the West believe them? So I don't know, because I hear different ways of looking at it.
Remember when I told you about the flush theory, or you just ignore certain things in order to achieve a goal? The United Arab Emirates, since the 70s, followed the same method, but for a different reason. The reason is economical. They wanted to create a great economy, they wanted to build a great country. And they realized very early that if they are to apply Islam, then they will never be able to reach that goal, because they needed the diversity, the pluralism, they needed the freedom that is foundational to economy. So they kept the Islamic shell, the cultural shell, but it's hollow from inside. There is nothing Islamic about the United Arab Emirates. Its system is imported from the West. Everything about the United Arab Emirates is Western except the shell. It's the outside appearance. That's it. So that's why they ignore, they are sincere. I'm talking here about the leadership. They are sincere in ignoring many aspects of Islam, because they know that their economy would crash if they are to apply Islam in any certain capacity. In Saudi Arabia, they realized late that, okay, we got to do something about this. We got to follow the United Arab Emirates, or in the post oil era, we will suffer. So they embraced the same mindset, and they tried to actually, it was overhauling of the whole thing. It's like, we're not going to do it progressively. No, 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 let's do it. Just do it. And it was successful. Very fast transformation. However, I don't believe there is an ideological transformation in what Islam is when it comes to foreign policy, or to Saudi Arabia role in other countries. For example, we have seen after the ISIS regime in Syria attacked the Druze in Jabal al-Arab and Suwaida and massacred them, Saudi sent 48 representatives to Syria to support Ahmad al-Shari' and his regime in the crimes that they committed against the Druze. So there's no ideological shift. What is happening is pragmatism. They cannot keep both a great economy because yeah, the oil sustains Saudi Arabia or the radical strict Saudi Arabia for decades, but not anymore. We are heading toward a different trajectory. We are entering the AI era, and if you are to build any economy, you need to import the same Western values that built the United Arab Emirates.
Two more topics before I let you go, because I know we're on a hard limit here. The first is that I think it was the UAE's foreign minister that said about a few years back that Muslim Brotherhood in our countries, we don't tolerate it. We'll put them in jail. We'll get rid of them, something like that. But they're all flourishing in Western countries. So,
Yeah.
for example, all of the Islamic big institutions in the West, the organizations in America, CARE, and all these other types are all run by the most radical type of Muslims. They're not the people who are pragmatists, like you just called them. They're the opposite. And in the Arab Islamic countries, they're all put in jail. In Egypt, you know what they did to Mohammed Morsi.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing to all the type of Muslim Brotherhood people. Saudi Arabia, the same thing. UAE, the same thing. And yet in the West, we haven't learned, or I don't know. How do you explain this?
In the West, banning the Muslim Brotherhood or banning this organization is not gonna change anything. I'll tell you why. If you are an Islamic country and you, let's say, ban the Muslim Brotherhood, what is the message that you're sending to your people? Everything the Muslim Brotherhood represent is banned. It's not only that organization, it's everything they represent. What do they represent? The ambition to take over the power in the country. So in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the government or the leadership is telling the people, listen, you are free to practice Islam, but no element of what the Muslim Brotherhood represent could be practiced. You cannot be calling for Islamic country. You cannot be calling for applying Sharia. You cannot be participating in Islamic political party. The political side of Islam is banned. So they don't only ban the Muslim Brotherhood. I want to make this very clear because this is important. In the West, however, it's not Islamic country. So they have laws and they say, okay, let's ban the Muslim Brotherhood affiliated organization. We have identified these 25 organizations. Let's ban them. The following day, the same people would go and establish new organizations, different names, different labels, with the same ambition, with the same ideology. Now, the West cannot keep banning all of these organizations because they will be masquerading themselves under different things like charities, humanitarian work, social services, whatever. In the Islamic countries, it doesn't really matter what do you call it or how do you describe it, social security, social services, or whatever. We know who you are. We know what's your goal. So we're going to stop you. We're going to put you in prison. So you see that the thing here is in the Islamic world, they ban Islam, except its private spiritual part. In the West, they're banning an organization. They cannot ban Islam. So that's why I always say it's not going to work.
Shalom, Israeli friends. I'm Nikos from the Ayn Rand Institute. For 2 years now, you have been told that your grief doesn't matter, that your struggle to survive is a, quote, genocide. And you've been told that you must sacrifice yourselves for those who wish to destroy you. So it's time we asked, what kind of ideas produce such poisonous views? What motivates those who stand with your wannabe destroyers? And I know something about all this, Because for decades, I used to believe those same anti-Israel myths. But some years ago, I decided to focus on the truth instead. And since then, I've been committed to fighting by your side. On December 19th, join me and a group of speakers who will make the case for Israel's right to exist more forcefully than you've ever heard before. Click the link to register. Remember, soldiers and students attend for free. See you in Tel Aviv.
Can I just ask you one last thing that I just thought
Sure.
about as just lastly, when I was speaking with a few people that are from the UK, and in London, a lot of the old churches have been turned into mosques. And the
Yeah.
reason is twofold. Number one, the large Muslim population that is growing demographically, both from immigration, but also from just having a lot of children, like you said. And secondly, Brits who used to be Christian are becoming less and less Christian and
Yeah.
having, as a result, less and less children. So there's a Christian decline in the West. There's a lot of a Christian growth in South America and even in the Far East, but in the West we see Christianity in decline, especially in Europe. How does that translate it from your point of view into this cultural battle that's happening? What do we need in order to battle the Islamic fundamentalists who want to take over the West? Do we need our own religion? Like, I'm a Jew, and I would love for more people to go to church in the West because I think
Yeah.
it's important. But
Yeah.
in terms of the battle between, I guess, cultures, societies, faiths, do we need to be, in your opinion, in church?
So let me say it this way: if the king of a country makes a statement, that statement has authority, right? If an actor or a singer makes that statement, people would follow it, but it doesn't have authority. Now, that's what happened in the West. The values that built the West, which were Judeo-Christian, they were severed from the roots. So the West want the fruit without the root. So they're like, yeah, human rights, freedom of conscience, beautiful values. They are the product of the Enlightenment. Of course, it's not. It's like Friedrich Nietzsche said, "There is nothing such as a human rights if you're not a Christian." It's like it's ridiculous to even think that there is anything not transcendent would constitute the fact that a king and a homeless person both have the same value. What gives? It's like what makes that a reality? It's the imago Dei. It's like the image of God in the Torah. It's like it's divine values. Anyway, so when they say that our values are the product of the Enlightenment, which is man centered. It was men who created these values. Then they are relative. They could be changed. They are not absolute. This is the whole thing of postmodernism and relativism. Everything is relative, right? Now you have a weak West that lost the confidence in its identity, in its principles, and you have a very confident ideology called Islam coming into the West. So, who do you think is going to win? The confident or the shaky? I don't know, God is a female, there's no male or female, gender is a construct, you build your own truth. Uh, that is how weak the West is today, with all the wokeism and all this BS. And you have Islam coming with certainty, divine. Everything is solid. Islam is gonna take over just like that, unless, again, as I said in the example I gave earlier, unless the West repents. That it's like, remember who you are. Remember that it was the biblical God who built the West. You have divine values. You have divine truth, absolute truth, not relative. There, you cannot construct truth. You cannot. It's like it has to be revealed, and it was revealed. It came from above. That's the only way to compete with Islam.
And are you maybe a little bit optimistic that we've seen, at least in some parts of the West, a sort of uprising of people who believe in the nation state? We've seen in some instances that the younger generation is starting to go more to church than the last generation. So is there a reason for a little bit of optimism before you go?
I I really want to be optimistic, but from what I'm seeing on the right, I am not. I'll tell you why. Because the whole patriot nationalist movement on the right is ignorant of the fact that their position of Israel is a package deal. It's not just, I don't care about Israel, I just want to be America first. But if you are America first and you abandon Israel, then you are abandoning everything Israel is fighting for. And what does Israel fight for exactly? They're fighting for the concept of sovereignty, nation state. They're fighting for freedom because that is why they're being attacked. They're being attacked. They have been attacked for 70, 80 years because they are sovereign. If the Jewish people submit today, the war will end in a second, right? So it's like, no, we want our sovereignty, we want our nation, we want our freedom. So if I am on the right in America and I don't care about Israel, what I'm saying is I don't care about all that package that Israel is fighting for. I only want to care about America, and that's it. But how would you defend America without defending what America is? America is what Israel is: sovereignty, freedom, and it's like you can't reconcile that. So that's why I am pessimistic a little bit, because these currents are invading the right, and unfortunately, people are not aware of the damage that is being done.
Yes, I agree. Danny Burmawi, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Keep up the good fight. And we'll, guys, if you want to, before I just want to tell my people, go buy Danny's book, first of all. We'll put up a link in our description so anyone can go to Amazon or wherever Danny prefers for you guys to go buy it. And secondly, everyone go follow Danny on X. That's how I found him. He has great, interesting stuff. For example, I mentioned the topic of the Dawa. You explained as a child how you went and found all this kind of, you gave a background, which I think a lot of people would find interesting. So go look up Danny on his X account. So Danny, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.